We invited the guests from the first season. And the reason why we invited the guests was to have a wrap up of the season and have people get to know each other and really discuss like some of the pitfalls, some of the highlights that we've had in our craft, and then generally how we get over them as far as like the mental state that you have to be in, right? A lot of us have gone through writer's block or creative block, right? And so how do you get past that is going to be one of the focuses, but it's really to inspire people to take that jump into whatever their passions are. It's really intriguing to be able to listen to somebody's story and to listen to how they decided to become passionate at whatever they became passionate about. So we're going to get this started. Again, my name is Jesus Azteca 500 Sanchez, and this is the 500 and Growing podcast.
500 and growing.
Podcast. Dedicated to the underdog, cause I see you working on your craft, getting strong, cause I see you ready to set it off and on, cause I see you correcting all that is wrong, cause I see, cause I see, cause I see, cause I see, cause I see.
I'm Tyson Sanchez. I am also known as DJ Newlife. I'm also Dr. Tyson Sanchez as well. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, native Chicagoan. Happy to be here amongst friends.
Love. My name is Navarro. I've been an artist for many years. I now am an artist manager. I develop artists here in the city of Chicago. And I also have a youth mentoring program, music program called Beats and Bars. And yeah, that's who I am.
My name is Armando Perez. I'm a musician, producer. I like to live life and hang out and build with my friends and community.
Jessie Santiago. I am a documentarian, videographer, and as of recently after COVID, I am more of a post-production editor for videos, and I'm also a martial artist, primarily focusing on Southeast Asian and Filipino martial arts. So that's what I've been doing recently, and also been traveling.
The first question that we have is, all of us have not done this on our own, right? Like we've been built by community or by observing other people doing whatever they're doing, right? So how has community helped you achieve what you have created in your life and your craft? Navarro, you were gonna say?
Yeah, I think just because me and Mando were talking about this right beforehand, that we connected on Bate Urbano. So that was community-based. That was a safe space in Humboldt Park that youth was able to go. We were able to do. They had eventually built out a small studio in the back too. But more than anything for me, it was, I think, Friday nights they held an open mic. Anybody could sign up, and that was the first spot I ever rapped a verse that I wrote in my bedroom. You know what I mean? So it was like my first exposure. It was people from my community. It was a community space. So to me, that motivated me. The first time I did that and I got the reaction that I got, I was just like, okay, I got something. You know what I mean? Like, let me go back and write some more. It wasn't everything I had been doing up until that point. Like, no matter what, as an artist, we seek some validation as much as we say we don't. Because if we didn't, then we would just do this in our bedrooms. You know what I mean? But the reason the moment we decide to put it out, or the moment we display ourselves in front of somebody, we want our communities and our people to accept us, right? Because we're bringing something to the table. And so that was my motivation at that young age. I was probably like, 14, 15, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like just being there, and I was just like, okay, this I like this. I'm doing something that's, keeping me away from the streets, because I lived on Keeler and Wabansie and in the early 90s. And so it was just like, okay, it gave me a space to go where I felt I could do it. And it was, again, homies from the neighborhood, and it just felt good, man. So community kind of started me and guided me in the direction that I'm at. Everything after that, like it gave me the confidence to keep going.
That's what's up, Armando.
Yeah, building on that, I just love that music brings people together, right?
Yeah.
No matter what has happened, it's always been some sort of art that interests people and brings them together. And so the collaboration happens there, and they're nurtured there. Like we were nurtured at Bate, it gave us a platform. We met each other, we built off of that. And I think that's true of like art galleries, and that's why there's that cerebral portion of it. It attracts people because it makes you feel something and you can participate. You feel like you're a part of it just by looking at a painting, or you feel like you're a part of it if you're listening to an artist on stage and you're inspired, bro. You know what I mean? Like, how many times have I seen Tyson DJ and be like, damn, that's so ill. So I'm dancing. And at the same time, like, absorbing like the mental process that it takes to blend the selections that you put up, right? So as an example, yeah, just the fact that these arts bring us together, and that's that community. I love that, man. Without these open mics, or without having gallery shows, or even backyard jams, right? This all started like where? I mean, if we bring hip hop to the table, the Bronx, backyard parties, street parties, like that was the start of a culture. And I think every culture has that community point where it just grows from. Yeah.
What about you, Tyson?
I mean, I don't know that I can add anything that these two gentlemen didn't already say, but I guess in addition to that, yeah, community and building amongst people who resonate with you is mega important. Staying true to who you are and what you do, and being receptive and inspired through being a part of a community, especially around music. There's nothing really for me that parallels that. I love going to art shows and looking at other forms of art. But, the DJ culture, production culture, live performances, those are all kind of where it's at for me. And I do owe everything from like my close friendships that I have now to, I guess, the way I've shaped my life is all centered around my music community in so many ways.
Jessie, do you have anything to say?
Sure. In terms of community, it's been a culmination of what everyone has said already. I've been in different communities, like within the art scenes, from drawing in high school to the hip hop scene in my teen years to visual arts in my 20s. Now I'm into the martial arts now. And I don't know, it's like I've been always this lone wolf in terms of, if there's something that attracts me to something within a community, then I kind of switch gears. It's not like I totally disregard the previous community, but I kind of flow between what piques my interests at certain points in my life. And the community has been, from my perspective within each community, is just the acceptance of who we are as artists, and also just being creative in different ways. And I guess for me as an artist, it's transitioned into various different areas to where I'm at right now. Who knows where I'm going to be in another 10 years? I might have another different community, and in terms as an artist, I might be transitioning to something else. But as of now, it's community is people that's pretty much been helping me on the journey in any way they can, and just building off of that.
So we talk about like community, right? Like what's a time period that you were kind of facing where you were just like, community might have been telling you to stop doing what you're doing, or people that were important to you, and were there any times where you had to like truck through something even though they weren't kind of believing in your vision and what you were doing? And what was that process like mentally to be able to do that, to be able to kind of break through and be like, no, I believe in what we're doing. I'm at the cusp of how it's going to happen. Tyson.
I've been at this point, I think, a few times. The first thing that comes to mind is like when I started DJing, I think. Well, actually, when I started playing out. When I started DJing, I was really young and I did it in the bedroom for 10 years. But when I started playing out, I would come out and play the same songs that I would be playing in the bedroom, and people would like, kind of be lulled to sleep. I was like just really super chill DJ. And at the time, that just wasn't the sound that other DJs were playing, but I stuck with it. And then a lot of things happened, but there were a lot of naysayers like, no, dude, you can't play what you're playing, sort of thing. And you'd stick with it. The mental process behind that is just sort of, I think it's subconscious. You just love what you're doing, and that's it. And you don't let the noise that comes out of people's mouths interfere or stop you, or I didn't. So that's basically how I handled that situation.
Navarro.
Yeah, just with music, man. I came from a Mexican household. I was first generation here. My parents didn't understand hip hop, didn't understand me trying to rap. They weren't trying to hear it, it was just something that I spent time doing, again, on my own. And again, no disrespect to them. It wasn't that they weren't trying to understand. It was just something, it was foreign to them. Now in hindsight, I was like, well, how could they get it? And I think that's what motivated me eventually to start doing stuff in Spanish and things like that, because I was like, I want my parents to at least to be able to get some of what I'm doing, and And then when it ended up being what got me the most attention at the time when I started. I was like, oh, okay. So, it was just like what at some point maybe was discouraging ended up being motivating at the end. And yeah, every time I took it as a win, whether I came, when I came out on MTV, when I came out on, the Tribune, stuff like that, like those were my parents like, oh, that's what he's doing. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, that's what he's been trying to build. Like, I wasn't expecting them to understand it. And luckily I had great mentors at that time, like the Moment, to tell me like, hey, bro, don't worry, because they came from that same background. Their parents were also, at least with Panic and JR, they're, son mexicanos también. So they understood like their parents not understanding it and appreciate that, those things that may be discouraging at some point, end up being the motivation to keep going.
Did anybody ever have to choose between two passions and you had to like be like, yo, I'm going to totally focus on this? And what was that process like, Jessie?
It's funny you mentioned that because when I went to graduate school for education, when I was going to UIC, I thought that would be my long-time career path because it was stable. You get the 401k, all that stuff. But it just came to the point where after year 4, I got burned out, and I decided to go back to what was making me happy and what was giving me more of a self-gratitude in terms of what I've been doing creatively. And so the burnout process within the education field, I just came to a point I'm like, why am I doing this for barely making $50K a year? And art's not just martial arts, has always just been an escape. I see it as more of therapy than anything. So yeah, to go to where I'm at when I left the education system in 2017 to now, I have no regrets at this point. It's still a struggle, but I'd rather be struggling and happy than working for someone and being unhappy.
Armando.
I love that. Yeah, that's huge, man. Thank you for sharing that, because I think most artists can resonate with that. Hey, does it make you happy, or are you just making a living and really unhappy? But yeah, overall, the only thing I could add is that the concept of doubt when you're being artistic, right? It can come in many forms. It can come in the form of a parent saying, yeah, I'm not feeling you. Yeah, I can't support this. Or it can come in the form of you doubting yourself, or that one person in the audience that walked away, or, your family is saying, oh, you should do this. Why don't you take a class in this? Because you're really good at this, but you keep doing that, and maybe you would benefit from doing this. And that's really a tricky prospect for you, because you're trying to live your passion. You're trying to be successful at what you find value in. Mm-hmm. And so it's really difficult to know when to quit if you're passionate about something and you're not getting the results.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine like you're staring at a wall and you're just like, man, there's life after that wall. I just got to break through. I know that in Rafael's interview, there were people that were just like, come on, man, like as far as the business goes, like.
For me, more than anything, it was the transition from understanding where like I was an artist for a lot of years. And as much as I still want to make music, I also know there's more value in what I was doing because of, I started a youth program. And I realized there's value in all the years I taught myself how to make music and how to, create it. Now I could teach these younger artists, guide them in the proper way. And then I was like, okay, now I think I play a bigger role. I have soldiers under me in this, or around me as I'm building them up, as opposed to just me, myself as an artist trying to like change the world. I was like, yo, there's more value in me being able to share this knowledge and have more people do with it what they can than me trying to just like make this next album and break it in, or whatever. It was just like, yo, there's more value if I do this, and if I plant the seed in all these young brothers and sisters. I was like, yo, they could go out there and do it. And then as the next phase of that was like, well, okay, now I want to help them manage that art, and how do they actually get it out and properly.
That's great, bro. That's building community in action.
Exactly.
That's dope, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. But yeah, that was just a motivating factor for me.
Tyson, what's your ritual for like starting your craft?
Well, I guess it depends on which craft you're talking about, because I approach my physical therapy work also as a craft, and I express creativity through that work as well, I like to think. Mm-hmm. And we oftentimes think about, well, art is music, art is visual arts, art is, editing. But really art can be anything. Art can be the way you live your life. And so I carry that over, I think, into physical therapy, and kind of where I get my information from, because it's definitely it's a process of continued learning and continued relearning and rethinking the way you learned the things you learned. And so it's quite involved. But generally, I make time. I make time for the things that I love. So I'm very fortunate that I have two things that I mainly do, and I don't look at them as work. So helping people with their health and their overall quality of life through physical therapy practice is something that I find great joy in. I'd do it for free if I didn't need money to live on. And same thing with music and DJing. I make time for these things. I really do set aside time to practice on the turntables, to gather information, process information for physical therapy.
As far as like DJing, like how when you're approaching the table, do you do any rituals as far as like light incense or like play a bell, or you know what I'm saying? Like, is there anything that gets you started to get into the mind frame of doing that type of work?
Mm-hmm. I practice at least once a week, maybe twice, like at home, sometimes more regularly, but I have it on my calendar, literally. And I can't say that I light incense or have tea or have a certain mantra or anything like that. I just kind of let the hand practice take place. Because as a DJ, it's like playing an instrument. If your hands aren't used to the keys or touching that instrument, you begin to get rigid. Things don't flow. You don't want to be thinking while you're on the turntables. You want things to just happen. You want them to go directly from your brain through the speaker, and the hands just need to. So it's really about getting your hands on the equipment. And I'll start practicing scratching initially. Then I get experimental and play two different songs and bring them together. Or sometimes I just visualize being in front of an audience, a certain audience, or a certain group of people, and I'll just kind of go through that, just different scenarios in my mind.
The reason why I was asking this question was because in an episode that's going to be released soon, Logan, Lou, and I were talking about it, and one of the things that really impacted me in my life was a conversation that I had with him. I told him one of the things that we talk about is me becoming sober, and when I became sober, it was just like it was hard to get into that frame of mind to like rhyme. Because when you're taking substances to get mellowed out, you get to that place immediately, right, with that substance. But when you don't have that substance and you're living your life in a sober way, you have to get to that place in a different way. So what I do is I meditate and just like try to make myself as present as possible while I'm creating, right? So it's like if I'm sitting down to write or I'm sitting down to DJ, it takes a lot longer to get to that place, but I'm able to get to that place through like really focusing and like being present. Anybody else have any rituals? Armando, you were gonna say?
So what jumps out to me is like the word intention, right? And I love that that Tyson, you said, practice. And the more you practice something, I know it's cliche, but the more you do it, the more confidence you're going to have, the easier it's going to be in front of people, the more you're going to be able to like really perform and knock it out because you already trust yourself, right? So putting the art or whatever you're doing into practice, doing it regularly, it becomes second nature. It becomes muscle memory in many ways, like you were saying. And even with writing or having the courage to like let go of substances, I find that the intention of wanting to do it well and putting yourself into the practice of doing it regularly can elevate your performance, your abilities, and it translates and people can pick up on that, I think. So I would say having the intention or putting yourself in the intention is probably the best thing you can do to be ready before you're about to hit and do whatever it is you're going to do. Make a movie, dance, write a song, DJ, or cook breakfast, use the bathroom. Gotta be intentional.
You gotta use the bathroom for sure, right before you perform.
Gotta be intentional, and be ready and trust your body and listen to your body.
No, yeah, for sure, man. I box, and so that's one thing you got to do before you get up in the ring, because you don't want to be up there having to go to the washroom.
No, sir.
All right, Jesse, what were you about to say? How do you get yourself started?
So basically, because since I'm a night owl, I don't really start my day until the afternoon, and I work until like 2 o'clock in the morning. But I always make sure that there's a pot of coffee ready throughout the day. And with me, I'm just trying to avoid creative burnout throughout the process. So every time I'm editing a video, you know, when it comes to that point where you're getting burned out or you're getting frustrated, it's always when you want to make time for yourself, because that frustration can show in your work. Like you misspelled something, or you missed a frame that should have been cut out. So it's always good to take a break in terms of whatever you're doing creatively. For me, it's like once my eyes are starting to get strained or my back is starting to hurt from sitting on a computer all day, you know, I'll go take a walk. I'll pour myself another cup of coffee. Sometimes when I'm editing a video, I'll play a movie in the background on low volume. So since I work from home, you know, I pretty much like the isolation in terms of like creating what I can during my time frame as opposed to being creative under someone else's time frame, because that gives me time to just step back, calm down if I'm getting frustrated with something, and then go back to it and focus. So for me, it's all about approaching things with a clear mind, without any negative emotions involved, and then just taking your time, going back to the basics. And on a creative sense, you know, it's going back to the basics in terms of, you know, if sometimes when you're thinking too much, that kind of prevents you from achieving the end goal. So from my perspective, in terms of rituals, I just want to make sure that, make sure that your back is not hurting anymore. You clear your mind, have a cup of coffee, go for a walk, and then sit back and then look at it from a fresh lens.
Yeah, that's dope. I mean, it's just like you're doing a self-check. I think that's really important to do a self-check. You know, one thing that when you were talking about putting on a movie, one thing that's really important is lighting for me. So it's just like if you go into the studio in the night, the studio in the day and the studio in the night is different. So in the studio in the night, I have like, especially with the LED strip lights, man, I put that all over the studio, but it's not like you can't see it. It's like behind something and it just like sheds the light on the wall and it just like, it sets the mood to the create. And when I was painting, it was like having spotlights like these to really like just block everything else out and fully concentrate.
Yeah, you got to create a mood.
You do.
Right?
You do because
have the mood right.
Yeah, you have to have that mood right with the music, right? Music is really important.
Absolutely.
You know? All right, Navarro.
I'll say this though. With that being said, it's also like it's really good, but it's also you have to also don't get too comfortable because I was like that in a way where I would only create in a certain space.
Yeah.
And then as a young artist, my manager would sometimes put me in studios and in rooms with other people, and you got to write in the spot.
Like right now, let's do it. This is your big chance.
You can't go and like, yo, let me go back in my room and write this rap. And no, you're on the spot.
I'll be back in 3 hours.
You got 45 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. While he's writing his verse, you're writing your verse, and then you start realizing this is how it works.
Yeah.
Like you get brought into other sessions with bigger artists, and you're like, oh, they're working here and they're knocking it out and they're moving at that pace. So again, a lot of people might not like certain music, but brother, there's the dedication and the commitment to complete it and to get it done. Someone, either it's them or their team that they put together, whatever, is actively working to get a finished product and put it out. There's something there, and I think that's when you need to realize, like, again, am I doing this to keep it here, or am I actually trying to build something from here? And it's like, and then you need to know that those situations will come, and so be prepared.
Yeah. So how did you get yourself prepared when you were just like thrown into the deep end?
Just go.
Just go. You were just like, let's
finish
do
my
it.
verse. Let's go. Because again, man, like it's like
The
anything.
adrenaline had to help too, right?
I've been training for this. You've been waiting for this. So it's just like, all right, now you're giving me the opportunity. Let's go. It's just, it's just that you got to go. I remember I was in a room with Dilated Peoples. I was in the room. It was Dilated Peoples, GLC, Freddie Gibbs, right? And then it's like, yo, they're just throwing verses, and they're like, yo, whoever gets the verses done is gonna get on this song. Is gonna get on that song, and I was just like, all right, let's go.
Time is money too.
So then I'm just finishing as many verses as I got to finish to get on whatever songs I got to get on. So but I'm not. Again, if you're confident in what you're doing and you've put in the hours, when it's time to show up, you'll show up. It's when you're not really serious about it and you do it here and there, and it's a hobby or it's occasional. Then you get thrown in that lion's den, and that's when you're gonna fold, and that's when you see the people who are ready and show up and who are not.
Falling off.
Does anybody have like self-critical space where you were like self-critical about what you were doing, and how did you get yourself out of that mind space?
Tyson.
I think everybody at some level experiences what's called imposter syndrome, right? Am I good enough? Do I belong here?
Yep.
And I think it helps me to know that even though I've been DJing for as long as I have been, and I get in front of people to help them with physical therapy for as long as I have, there's still some nerves in situations. And I think that's sort of good for me. I feel a certain amount of stress is helpful to me. But I think it's just knowing and approaching it sort of as a challenge, is something, this is something I have to do. This is something that I want to do. And you know, I'm nervous right now before getting on. Maybe I haven't DJ'd in a while, or maybe I'm in front of like a quote unquote high profile person that I'm working with. I work with professional athletes and things like this. And it's a little more nerve wracking when there's more at stake. So it's just knowing that you're not alone. A lot of people get nervous and have imposter syndrome. And just powering through.
Navarro.
I'll say for myself, yes. As a young artist, Mexican American trying to be a rapper, you do question yourself. I was like, man, is this something I'm supposed to be doing? Is this is there someone that wants to hear my music or with the message that I'm trying to bring to them? Then I remember I shot up, my first video was the song called Chicano. I shot it in Laredo in Mexico with my cousin. My grandma's in the intro. She's giving me my bendición, and it's this song that I sampled, or the homie sampled Carlos Santana actually, and whatever. It's this song, right? And I put it out, and right before I was going to upload it, I don't know, this was years and years ago. I told my girl, who is now my wife, my time at my girlfriend, I was like, you know, are people going to get what I'm doing here? Like, I've never seen a rap video where there's Abuelita giving the bendición in the beginning to the rapper, and then she's giving it, and then it goes into this whole other thing. So I was like, are people going to get this? Like, what am I? She's like, just go for it. I was like, all right, cool. So just went, and then, like, I don't know, a week later, I get a call that they want to put it on MTV Jams or something. And I'm just like, all right, I guess there's something in what I'm doing here, right?
It's a really powerful song, man.
Thank you, brother. Yeah.
Armando.
Did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just it's actually illustrated in the story here of finding your audience. You know, that's probably the most important thing, finding the people that are going to resonate with your art. It's tough to do, but if you do have the opportunity to do that and you start to scratch the surface of finding your audience, I think that's where confidence comes from, and then success follows, right? But you have to practice enough to have the confidence to put something out to find an audience. So therein is the conundrum, right? Just got to keep on practicing until you break through.
That's what's up. That's what's up. All right. So what gives you fuel? You know, like what's something that you use to get to place of creation?
That's a good question, man. With the fuel?
Well, I mean, it could be positive or negative, right? It could be like Michael Jordan was playing, and he would use negativity to get him started, right? He'd be like, you talked about my mama? And the dude didn't even talk about his mama. And he'd be like, yo, I'm going to light you up with 50 tonight because you talked about my mama, and it's all in his imagination.
Yeah.
So in sports, trash talk is used to hype each other up, right? In creation, that might be a little bit different. Maybe that's where some people lean on substances. I'd like to think that, you know, maybe like life experience, maybe traveling, maybe getting out of town, maybe going for a walk. Like something that will let you, I guess, nurture a new idea. Or if you're like me, where you're like trying to sleep at night and you get a melody in your head and you gotta get up and you gotta figure it out and make a little note of it so you can actually try to write something out of it later. Mm-hmm. These things actually, you know, come in your sleep. They come like serendipitously, and you got to find some way to develop that idea and activate that. And I guess just pay attention. There's this book by Paulo Coelho called The Alchemist, and it's all about the omens, and pay attention to the omens, and like, are you paying attention to what's happening to you? And hey, this moment happened to me and it made me think that I need to do this, or I need to, you know, pay attention to this to have this inspiration. That is real as hell. So things are happening all around us. Are you paying attention like to what is happening to you? Because that can guide you too. You know?
Okay.
And I think, like you said, brother, it's important that you give yourself the time. I think it starts with that. Like, in order to achieve it, like you have to give yourself that, allow yourself to the time to create, because I think that's when, if you don't even give yourself that opportunity, then you're not even, you know, again, you're not going to have those moments. It's hard to be enlightened when there's so much going on around you. So to me, some of the most thought-provoking stuff that I've either put together or things that I've written is always alone, right? And again, I've been able to do it in other spaces as well, but it took all those hours of practice in my own space to then be able to, then activate that in other environments. But it takes you to give yourself that time to practice, and then, I think it's important, very important.
Yeah, one thing that I think in the interview that I had with Tyson, I believe you were saying that you work out and you'll dedicate it to somebody or something. Is that correct? Did you say that?
Yeah, it's like setting an intention for what you're doing. Maybe if I'm going on a hard run and I'm going to do it for my sick aunt or for my, ailing friend or whatever, I do it. It gets me through that part of a workout or a run where it's like, there's no way I can't, your body is quitting, but it's that mental intention that you set that gets you through. And you can carry that over into a lot of different things that you're doing. When you do something for someone else, sometimes you're more likely to complete it. I'm going to complete this album. I'm going to complete this melody, this, this project that I have going on with these young people. And so that's been helpful.
What about you, Jesse?
So in terms of my approach creatively, in terms of how I think in the process, as of now, I just think about what is the end message that you want, especially on my end where it's your creative director, editor, and post-production sound. But in terms of what I want to do, it's like I always think about what is the end message to the piece. So whether it's music or video, and then once you're putting it together and you're editing it, I always think about what is the end message that I want. And once I achieve that, once everything is set, I have another person looking at it, because from my directorial perspective, I might think it's good, but they might say, take this out or add this. So whatever it is in terms of the message you're trying to put out, I think the end goal is that. I think with any creative perspective, especially with what I do as a documentarian.
Okay. And so after Tyson's interview, one of the things that I've done is, especially training for boxing and like having to run, I run 4 miles every other day. It's just like trucking through it and think about something. So just recently, really a family friend I didn't know has dementia and got lost in Chicago. And so his daughter, put out like, have you seen this person? Please get in contact with blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, yo, that day I went running and I thought about him and I was just like, yo, I'm going to push through this. Even when I wanted to stop, just like in my, when your lungs are burning and stuff, just like keep going. And like, I'm not going to stop, and I'm giving this energy for that. So yeah, it definitely helps in the creative process.
I would tell you that's going to be something I'm going to use going forward. That's dope, bro. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
What are your philosophies on creativity? Do you have any philosophies on creativity?
Let it happen.
Tyson.
Yeah, I think, letting it happen. And actually, I mean, there are a lot of different directions you get, especially as a DJ, right? You can, if you're a diverse DJ, you can play all sorts of things, but really it's about staying true to who you are, doing you, and letting you come out. Because it's really, I think for me, it can be easy to sometimes just want to play what other people are playing. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that, because there's a time and place for that. But really, when you're trying to come off and express yourself artistically, if that's why you're DJing, if that's why you're playing music, producing music, then it's really important to stay true to yourself and really just do you. And it might go well against the grain, but ultimately, I think for many artists, that's probably what's most important.
Navarro.
I think with the creativity part, again, letting it happen is important, because regardless of what you're trying to attain with the art form, the people who wrote, if it's a hit you're trying to attain, more than likely the people who wrote a hit, a lot of them weren't chasing it and they came across one. And sometimes you could hear the ones that were being chased. So just let it happen, right? Just and if you're just creating for the sake of creating, again, just let it happen. Like, don't stifle it. A lot of times are like, well, this song's not going to fit and whatever. Just finish the painting, like finish it, and then we'll move on to the next one. But yes, there's some ideas that end up being just kind of a sketch that ends and might be the motivating factor for you to move on to the next bigger picture. But utilize it. Like keep those verses, keep those hooks, or keep whatever it is, keep an idea for, because you might be able to implement it in the next thing. But create in the moment, whatever it is that you're doing, like keep chipping at it, look at it as a sculpture, look at it as a painting, like just whatever you got done with it today, that's what got done today, and come back to it tomorrow. I think that's a big factor in it.
How do you ride the waves of like the ups and downs as far as like what you do? Like you have high peaks where you're just like, damn, everything's perfect, everything's aligning. There's like eclipse, and then there are those days where it's like super cloudy. How do you get through those moments, Armando?
I like that you're likening it to weather, because I find that in the medium of music, I found it helpful to view creation in terms of seasons, right? It's like the earth's breathing, right? So in the wintertime, I feel like that's a great time to hibernate and gather and create and record. And then the springtime, like you're fine tuning those creations. You're mixing, you're mastering, maybe you're coming up with artwork. And then summertime is the release, and you get to celebrate it and perform it and share it with the world. And then in the fall, it's kind of like when the leaves fall off the trees, you prepare for another creative season. You're like riding that wave down into your next creative season. So
that's what's up. And then the other thing is that we're from Chicago, so we get the seasons, right? Like Tyson is living in Oakland, where it's perfect almost all the time, right? So it's just like it's a different zone. I wonder if people from that side of the world are talking about that. And so we have Jesse. Jesse's in Arizona right now, where it's like super hot, and he'll vanish if he goes outside right now. But you could go ahead, Jesse.
I mean, in terms of that, I just got back from San Francisco, so that Bay weather was kind of a shock to my system, because I was like, oh, it's summer. I'm gonna go out there with shorts and a t-shirt, and I was like, what the heck? It's 58 degrees. I'm like, this is too damn cold. But yeah, I mean, in terms of staying like motivated, for me, it's just there are times, especially like when I've gotten older, that those Chicago winters definitely played a role in my mental health in terms of creativity, because I just wanted to just hibernate. So it's harder during the colder seasons to stay motivated to do what I have to do. So I always have to, it's all about time management and also not burning yourself out in the process. To stay motivated, I just take it one project at a time, as opposed to like, oh shoot, I need to get started in this other project. For me to just focus at the task at hand and do things in a certain amount of time where you're not overextending yourself. So like I said before, like if I need to take a break, I'll take a break. If I need to take a walk around the neighborhood, or I need to do anything else that'll help me take my mind away from other, whatever stresses of the project that I'm working on, I'll do that. Honestly, I don't know what else to say in terms of motivation, because there was that time period recently too when I got back from the Philippines in February, and I had to move out of my apartment, and I had to teach my students. So I didn't really have time to edit any content for the YouTube channel for almost like 4 or 5 months. And you just have to pick and choose, especially if you're wearing different hats creatively.
How do you reflect on your process? So you're doing something, right? How do you check in with yourself that you're doing a good job? How do you check and balance, like, because you could just be in what do you call it? In blinders, just going straight. But it's just like, sometimes you might take a walk. You might walk away from the painting for a second. You might have somebody listen to it, right? Like, yo, can you listen to it? Can you see what you think about this? Like, what is your quality check like? Sure. Tyson?
Yeah, I think continuously reevaluating what you're doing, asking yourself if it's serving you or serving your purpose, I think is important. And that can be like if I'm doing like an edit or a remix or even an original track, because I do a little production as well. Asking yourself what you're trying to accomplish with this track. Is this something that I'm going to play out in a club? Is this something that I'm going to just play like on my mix show, put it on SoundCloud? Is this something I'm just going to listen to for myself? rechecking and just reevaluating if what you're doing, and really like kind of stepping outside yourself, or zooming out, if you will, and then zooming back in, retweaking, and then giving things space and time, letting things breathe, putting a track away for, a week or even longer, and then revisiting it. And I'm good. I think I'm good too at like saying this isn't coming together. I'll put things to the side. I don't always feel the need to complete something. And then sometimes I come back to it a year or two later and maybe jump back on it. But it's interesting. I think reevaluation is critical with what you're doing. And it sounds like Jesse's done that. And I really like the way Jesse's talked about sort of moving and taking himself as an artist and saying, this is probably not, and I don't want to speak for you, but like, this isn't working for me right now. I'm going to do martial arts, and just jumping around. That's kind of a mark of, I think, one of the marks of a true artist is to like have different mediums and to move about and still stay true to themselves as an artist.
Navarro.
Yeah, that's dope. I think for me, reflecting, now more so, I'm not necessarily creating, I'm not the one creating even though I am writing still, but working with the artists that I'm working with. So it's, I'm obviously getting them in the studio, getting them to record. My reflecting part is like, once we have some music completed, it's like, all right, now what it's reflecting, but it's also thinking a step ahead. Like, okay, now what are we going to do with this? Right. Like now we have this music. Now what are the next steps? What is it? What could we do to amplify or for it to be impactful? And for me, again, I just moving with intent, knowing that, again, especially as I get older, it's like everything that I put my energy and time to, there's value in it, and I need to move accordingly like that. So even with the artists that I work with, there's a certain dedication that I expect of them. And it's those moments of reflection when you just, for me personally, I use it to also like plan ahead.
So this next part, I wanted to have like a dialogue between everybody, because you all listen to parts of each other's interview or conversation that we've had, ask questions to each other. Like how can we kind of interact a little bit more? You know what I'm saying? Navarro.
I guess one of the things I would like to know is what was from everyone, like what was that initial point as a young person that like triggered you to want to be either creative or just knew that, you weren't necessarily conforming to exactly how everything was aligned. You know what I mean? That you wanted to do something that might have been a little different. Like what was that, around what age? And then also like if there was something in particular that everyone remembers, like, oh, that was that moment when I was like, oh, this is it. I want to do it and move in this direction. What was that?
Armando.
Man, if you're asking me, I was in grade school. I was listening to music, B96. My buddies and I would sing that hits, after school, after playing basketball.
Killer Bee.
And then
Jobo in the morning.
Hey man, they're marketing.
Yeah.
It's A1.
But I think it might have been like maybe like watching a dope movie that was highly influential. Like for instance, La Bamba was a dope movie about a Chicano family, a broken Chicano family, and the homie was using music for to transcend his own like personal history and the pitfalls of life, and he was using that, and I was just inspired. And to answer your question, I was what 10, when I asked for like a guitar, you know what I mean?
That's dope.
Yeah, so that was my
Jesse or anybody else?
I think. Oh, go ahead, Jesse, if you have something.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on this on the interview I did with Jesus the first time around, in terms of I was a kid and just being exposed to different types of movies growing up, that I wanted to do something creatively within that end.
Nice.
And, my parents were very supportive of what I've been doing. It's not like most traditional Asian families where like, oh, I have to go into the medical or engineering or technology field. They gave me total freedom with what I wanted to do. So for me, as I look back on it, in my teens, I was into music and drawing, and that kind of metamorphosized into my 20s, got more into visuals and video, and then kind of took a break from the art scene for most of my 30s until like 34, 35, until I got into the martial arts. And kind of creative-wise, my background in video production and martial arts kind of converged now
Nice.
from like my mid 30s up to now in my early 40s. So it's always going to be there. And like I said, who knows what's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years from now when I'm in my 50s. That's going to be like, all right, what's my next journey as an artist? We'll see.
sure.
To be determined.
You're gonna be a yogi. I can already tell you, Tyson.
Yeah. For me, I don't know, maybe I'm going to get a little weird with this, but it's multifaceted. I think in many ways I can look at it and say that I think music really just came up with me. I truly believe it's in my DNA. I think there are things that take over our lives that we don't really quite understand just yet. And so, like, why does this Mexican/white kid grew up in Humboldt Park, like, listen to music from Brazil or from Jamaica or from wherever? Like, I'm just drawn to music in all of its forms. I don't have to identify, even speak the language necessarily. But it's something that moves me, and really even to tears sometimes. And so to me, it was very early that I had this strong emotional connection to music. And I can also look at, okay, you know, my father's a musician. So, you know, really maybe that had some sort of influence on me, maybe not. People around me, obviously the community, family and friends around me, I think they had an influence on me. So it's really, I don't remember a time when I wasn't really connected to music and immersed in music and health. So I don't know when it started.
Cool.
For me, emceeing, check this out, because I thought about this story. It was just like I was rhyming, and everybody knew I was rhyming, like my little crew. And so there was this kid that would get on the bus. He wasn't part of our school, but I rode the bus from Little Village all the way to St. Rita, which is like on 79th and Western.
Yep.
So it was a long ride. It was 45 minutes each way. There was a kid that got on the bus, and he was always busting rhymes, and they were like, yo, he knows how to rhyme. So it was just like I got put on the spot, and I had to battle this kid all of a sudden. And it's just like it put me over the edge where I was just like, I've been working on this. Now I gotta show. And so it was just like it was a moment where I was just like, maybe I could do this. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not that bad. You know what I'm saying? And everybody was like, damn. I mean, I was a Mexican kid that was battling. I had that factor, like that wow factor. Like they didn't expect a Mexican kid to be able to respond. You know what I'm saying? But that was part of it.
Yeah, it's just, again, man, we all seek that affirmation, or that, you know, that from other people. We, again, the moment we decide to showcase ourselves, it's because of something, you know. So we want that support, or we want people to, you know, to think of us a certain way. So that's dope, man. That's dope that everyone at some point or another got that validation.
Does anybody else have any other questions that you might have for the guests, or like intrigued by?
I guess I'll ask everyone here, like, how long do they see themselves doing what they're currently doing, and why? And if there's an end to that you actually see, like, how do you see it progressing or, you know, changing?
Jessie wants to take that. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I think for me personally, there is no end to being creative. I understand, like, throughout my different community networks, you know, we get older. Sometimes career and making money is a priority. And if you get married and you have kids, that also plays a role in terms of what you do creatively, because now your focus is on the family or with your work, and it kind of makes it difficult to be more of a creative. You know, it's different in my case because I'm still single. I don't have kids, so I don't have those external factors affecting me creatively. So it's going to be different for everyone, and everyone has a different way of, you know, balancing personal life and their creative life.
Navarro.
Yeah. I just want to leave a footprint. I just want to make an impact. And so as long as I do that, I'll be here forever. So that's how I look at it. Honestly, that's my perspective. I just, if I leave, or as long as I leave it with as many people as I possibly could. Obviously, we can't resonate with everyone, but as long as it's with the people that I can, I make an impact I'm good, and I'll feel that I'll be able to stick around for some time past my
And
time
in
here
your
physically.
episode, it was really important. One of the really important things that I got out of it was like, as long as it has something to do with what I'm focused on.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm always focused on that, especially with like some of the health problems that you suffered as a young child. Like you were just like, yo, I'm not wasting my time. I'm going straight for it. And if it aligns with what I'm trying to do, then we're good. And if it's not, then I'm not going to probably do that. Right.
Exactly.
So it's like, yeah, it kind of goes to that. For me, one of the things that I learned from y'all, from everybody that's in the episode, is that everybody, the message overall is like, create. Just keep creating. People will fall into place. Just keep creating. And your volume will speak for itself, right? Like people will be able to listen. As far as the podcast, like to episodes like Tyson, which was the first one that believed in me, you know what I'm saying? That's why it was really important for me to have Tyson in the table, because he's a physical therapist. And so I was just like, I was doing exercises with him. I was like, man, I'm thinking about doing this podcast, man. Like, what do you think? He was like, yeah, it's cool. I was like, yo, do you want to be a guest? He was like, I bet. And I was like, all right, cool. And he set the tone for the podcast. Yeah. Like through that conversation that we had, I'm really thankful to Tyson. But it's like, for me, it's like creating, keep on creating. And then the thing that kind of hovers over all of that is like you're saying, is like, am I leaving something positive for people to be able to pick up on? If I pass away tomorrow, what am I going to leave, right? And so what I'm going to leave are these interviews that I've had with people that people hopefully in the future will be able to listen to and like get a whole bunch out of it, right? Yeah, gems for sure. Armando.
Yeah, I'm going to be that old guy writing songs, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be the weird old man. Yeah, he's still doing that. Yeah. But you can't stop. Yeah. You know, if I'm being true to myself, who cares what people say? You know what I mean? I'm living my best life. It's all good. And you got to keep on going. Don't deny your own impulses. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know what I mean? Musically, creatively. Don't deny those impulses. You got to create. Yeah. Which kind of like leads me to my question, like that I post to all you guys. All right. You have a day off. All right. You have energy. You don't need to rest in bed. You don't need to catch up on sleep. You have a day off. What are you going to do? What's the best way to spend your day? What's your go-to day off choice ritual?
Is this like, you know, no music day off, no physical therapy?
Yeah. Well, again, if your perfect day is
I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around what a day off is, because it's like I don't know what a day off is. Because, and again, I'm really lucky because I don't get burned out from what I do, which is that's a privilege, right? So, but if I were to step away from my laptop and music and step away from like all of that, it's going to definitely be like one of the things I like doing in Northern California that I didn't get to do here growing up is going on a hike and finding a swimming hole like in a river. So I'll drive up about maybe 2 hours away to a town called Nevada City, hike for 2 hours, and and I bring some food and maybe, you know, bottle of wine or some beer or whatever. And it's my happy place. I go preferably alone, but sometimes I'll go with my partner and just go for a hike, swim for a little while in nature, no cell reception, nothing. That is my active meditation when I step away. Yeah.
Perfect. I love that, man.
I'm with the fam, man. I'm with my family. If I have a day off, I'm just on my way here. I'm hitting up because my family's been away, either little things here and there, and they finally all got back this week. So I was like, I want to see everyone. Like, where are we getting together today, tomorrow? Like, what's the move? I'll make time for that. I always make time for that. So yeah, I'm good. I could be trucking. I could be doing everything, just moving, knocking out whatever we got to knock out. But as long as I set some time for that, that's kind of my regrouping and getting back to. That's all I need.
Dope.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just like, well, I'm taking care of my kids, right? And so when I don't have to take care of my kids, I go upstairs and just like play music, mess around with the playlist. Like right now, I'm working on a house music mix, the second one that I've done or that I'm gonna be doing. Drawing, You know, like just expressing myself artistically in some way. You know what I'm saying? And being by myself. I think that that's really important, is to be by yourself. The benefit of being I guess, old ass athlete is that you get that time by yourself. You know what I'm saying? You're working out by yourself. So I do a lot of meditation during that time, where it's just like I think about things. I'm just like, yo, like even thinking about getting this together, it was just like, imagine my running on the 606 at 12 o'clock at night, like thinking about how I was going to get this together. And so that's how I do it. What about you, Jesse?
For me, it's, I don't know, like days off, because I pretty much work every day in terms of what I do. But for me, I guess when I turn off is when I go traveling. So I'm even though I moved to Arizona back at the end of April, I'm only been here 2 weeks at a time, because I was hopping to Florida, then I was in the Bay, then I'm back here, then I'm heading back to Florida, then I head back to Chicago, and then Ohio, then back to Arizona. And I don't know, that's what I'd like to do, is to travel and just experience different areas and meet up with different people. And so that's kind of like my meditation. How I zone out is I don't like to stay in one place for too long for some reason. Like after COVID, I've been traveling more now than before that. So my thing is just keep traveling and learning new things.
Oh.
And then Jesse, would you like to ask a question to your fellow guests?
So were there any prolonged periods where you weren't creative, where you weren't doing anything? And then how did you find that motivation to get back into it again?
Navarro.
Yeah, I'll take that one because it was something we mentioned. But yeah, when I had my daughter, I was 30, and that was around the time that I decided I needed to just stop focusing. Because again, I knew nothing but to go very hard into the music. Like I was focused, 24/7. So once I became a father, I was like, I don't want to half-ass being a father. Without a doubt, and I'm not gonna half-ass being an artist. So I was like, and what's most important right now, I need to be present. So I completely shut down making music. But I started working at CPS at the time, where it was actually where I met Jesus, and I started a program called Beats and Bars, and that initiated my creativity again, because I was able to start writing again. I was working with youth, but that made me bring similar to you, Jesse, where you said your worlds kind of collided finally with the martial arts and like your backgrounds. It was the same thing for me. I was in education at that point, but all this creative stuff that had been involved with years prior started kind of blending in. And so that's what triggered my creativity again. And then from there, I was like, I want to manage artists. Like I realized how powerful it was to work and develop younger artists. I was like, now I want to learn how to manage and break that, So it brought me back into music. I haven't been the one recording anymore. I'm not the one, but now I'm coordinating that. I'm helping, with the songwriting. I'm executive producing projects and moving them forward. So that's how I was able to come back around after I was I didn't do anything for a couple of years, probably like 2 years. And then I got that program, and then it really just triggered everything back for me, and everything aligned.
Tyson.
I also stepped away when I became a dad from DJing. I was really young, but aside from that, I'm trying to actually actively take more time away from being creative, and I'm having a hard time with that, because I think when you do step away for extended periods, it allows certain thoughts consciously, even subconsciously, to marinate. And I move around a lot within my art, and I DJ and I produce, but things change within that quite a bit, even within the season. So if you're talking about fall, whatever, and within the seasons things change. But aside from that, no, I can't say that I've had periods away where I felt that I was lacking, or I needed to jump back into something, that something was wrong per se. Everything was okay. Yeah.
Armando.
Dope. Yeah, I don't think I've ever really had a prolonged period of inactivity. I've always been able to pivot if one thing's not, if I'm not feeling one aspect of my art, I could do another one, like between live music and DJing. There's a perfect example where it's like they're kind of the same world, but they're different actions, they're different practices. And I think that I've been able to lean on that and keep myself inspired. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, if something's not working, I just try something else. I mean, I've painted too. I've made videos too. I cook too, and other things that have nothing to do with color or sound. Rearranging, cleaning your house. Keeping. I don't know. I'm starting to get. I just stay. I feel like I can pivot and stay inspired, and I've learned to just take notes in my phone and then revisit whatever that little spark might be. Later when I'm more ready and I could be more intentional about it. So that's really helped me out, but don't think I've ever had a prolonged period of inactivity. Thank powers that be.
For me, it's like, I got really involved in like, social movements and what I figured out, what slowed it down, and I've mentioned this in the podcast, is like having kids. And so, or having my little daughter that I had to take care of during COVID, and just decided to step away from that life and like really focus on my daughter. And then thus, she would take naps, really long naps at the beginning, right? So she'd take like 4-hour naps. So during those 4 hours, I was able to create, and I was able to get in on the creativity part. It was just like, I was still creating during the time that I was organizing, but it was creation tailored to other people. So it was like, yo, we're having this event. Okay, we need a flyer. Let's get this flyer out. Or we need a banner. Yo, let's make a banner. And so my creativity, it was all focused on like other people's expectations, right? And purpose. During the naps, I was able to remember, yo, I need to create to make myself happy. You know what I'm saying? And so that I learned how to DJ. I remember we were giving birth. So Tyson, he was doing these Twitch, especially during the pandemic, and you would be able to type in and on the what do you call it, the message board?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the chat box.
Box, and I was like, "Yo, I'm about to have a baby, Tyson."
Whoa,
and he was like,
remember that.
He was on there. He was like, "Yeah," and I want to give a shout out to Jesus that's having a baby like right now, and then play the next track. So it was just like And then I remember telling you, I was like, yo, I just got a controller. Like I'm thinking about doing this DJing thing and like really getting started, and gave me really good advice about like how to approach it. So it was a great first interview. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate your time, brothers, for real. Each one of you, and people that aren't able to be here, right? Like, you've given yourself to the podcast and to the audience, and you know, you've given people a perspective of like not the social media presence that we have when we're taking pictures with our family or we're taking pictures of us doing really cool things. It's like you got to see the other side of things. And I think that that's really important for people to get to know, because not everything's gravy, you know, and you got to get through that slush at times. My brother over here only gets to experience his weeks of slush. We get to experience months, man. So living in Chicago is a different thing, but I really appreciate you. Thank you for all of your energy. If you want to give a last comment to the audience, and then we'll play the music and ride out into the sunset.
Yeah. Thank you, Jesus, for putting all this together. It's a lot of effort. Yes. And, you know, the lighting, sound, and video, and this is great. I appreciate talking to all you all, yes, and getting to know you all. But yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, continue blessings in whatever everyone's endeavors are as they come.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. On behalf of all the guests, man, I got to say thank you so much.
All right, Jesse, would you want to say anything?
He said peace already.
Oh, he said, oh man, my bad. I didn't.
Thank you, guys.
Let me just do a real cool shot. Let me do a real cool shot, because I can rotate this one.
Yeah, just
like a Star Wars X-Wing, some shit.
So I could rotate this.
That's fire. Got all the gadgets, man. You know what I mean?
Hey, man, you know what it is? It's social media, dog. Oh, like, yeah. They be like, yo, I think you might like this. I think you might like this. And I'm just
your ads are popping, bro.
Damn. And I'm like, yo, this is a cool little gadget.
You need this now.
Got you in the algorithm space.
Oh man.
Do it the old fashioned way.
That's like Robotech, bro, that thing. Right? The jet, remember that shit? It's just like it.
We had Eddie and Jobo and Robotech mentioned during this recording.
You're welcome, everybody.
We didn't age ourselves at all.
Tell me y'all are over 40 without telling me you're over 40.
That's
Yeah,
straight.
man. Well, thank you very much for coming out, man. I really appreciate it.
Sure, man. Thank you.
It was gonna take a half hour for me to figure this out. I was just like, nah, it's not even worth it.
Got
But
it in.
500 and growing. What?
500 and growing.
dedicated to the underdog, cause I see you working on your craft, getting strong, cause I see you ready to set it off and on, cause I see you correcting all that is wrong, cause I see you dedicated to your craft, read and study the math, making goals and taking a stand, original, so you trailblaze a path, in tune with your inner master plan.
Visit 500andgrowing.com for more creative content.
For this season finale, we invited all the guests of the first season, and unfortunately, through scheduling, it was pretty hard to get everybody together for the season finale. So I really want to appreciate them. Thank you very much to the beautiful and incredible Kasha Sanchez, which is the editor-in-chief of the 500 and Growing podcast. And we're going to be off for several months and starting to record the second season. We appreciate you following, and thank you very much for listening. And please follow and share the podcast, and follow at 500 and Growing podcast on Instagram, because you're going to get a heads up of like what we've been working on. You'll get excerpts of future guests, so you'll be able to listen to a little bit of their story, so that you can kind of get excited for the second season. Check out 500andgrowing.com for more creative content, and we'll see you in the second season. Thank you, everyone. Peace.
500 and growing.